not controlling the border for those people who are tempted because they have a very bad life where they're at, that's not very merciful. It's not very good. Laws exist to, in some way, deter people from doing things. And by not having a border law and not having controls on this, we encourage people who are desperate to take desperate measures. I don't think that's a very loving way to be, both from a Christian perspective, but just from a secular government perspective.
Well, hello, listeners. You are listening to Faith in Action. I'm your host, Matthew Nowlin.
And I'm Shawn Graham.
We lead Conservative Christians of Tennessee, and we are tickled pink you're listening to the show. Conservative Christians of Tennessee exists to analyze political policy and politicians in Tennessee in and out of the church, and offer a conservative Christian worldview to support conservative Christians of Tennessee in our educational efforts, our public policy analyses, and other needed endeavors. You can give a one-time or a recurring gift at patreon.com/TNChristian. It'd be a big blessing and help us a lot if you do. We want to glorify God. That's our mission by helping you to glorify God. Please don't hesitate to send us any questions or comments through email. You can reach me directly by emailing Matthew at tnchristian.com.
Or Shawn, SHAWN, at tnchristian.com.
And if you want to help me beat the shadow ban on X, I'm banned because I talk too much about trans-related issues from a Christian perspective. You can follow me. I'm at MNBookman on X. Again, that's at MNBookman. Help me beat the man. Our scripture for today is from Jeremiah, the 10th chapter, verses 3-5. For the customs of the people are vain, for one cutteth a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workman with an axe. They deck it with silver and gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers that move it not. They are upright as the palm tree, but speak not. They must needs be born because they cannot go. Be not afraid of them, for they cannot do evil, neither also is it in them to do good. Now, listeners, we never want to minimize or belittle the loss of life, especially when it's due to petty political differences and hyped up activism. Now, what does that look like in America? Well, it looks like George Floyd, an overdosed criminal dying while resisting arrest. Or it looks like Renee Good, a gay woman who tried to drive over an officer of the law in Minnesota. Now, these are truly tragic events, but there have been thousands of deaths at the hand of illegal aliens, and America has made it clear that supporting the illegal aliens and criminals is more important than protecting the innocent lives of Americans. That's got to change, and it is changing. We're at a crossroads. The question is, which way, Western man? Will you worship the new gods of winsomeness, or will you return to biblical law and order, which God gave us to help our land prosper? Now, that's clear. England is going towards godless Islam, and that nation, as a result of that, is heading towards total collapse because of it. Now, in America, thank God, the church is not dead, and not dead yet. But if we don't turn from our ways and follow God's teachings, well, without God's help, the 250th anniversary of America will be its end, not its beginning. But under God, we can return to our founding. Today, we're pleased to have Alan Atchison, longtime friend of the show, back with us. Alan is a Southern Baptist living in the suburbs of beautiful Birmingham, Alabama. He earned a Master of Arts in Interdisciplinary Studies of History and Political Science from Western New Mexico University. He studied church history at Liberty Baptist Theological Seminary and holds a BA in Political Science from the University of Alabama at Birmingham. He's married to Paige, and they have one son. And Alan, it's been too long, but it's always great to have you on. Welcome back to Faith in Action.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's good to be here. Definitely full of news going on.
Yes.
It is wild, isn't it?
It's very, very wild, but it's sort of like if you think back to the last administration, it got a little bit calmer. There was not as much agitation going on in the streets, and then you get Trump back, and this is what we see.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about immigration. You and I have done at least 2 radio shows on that, Alan, and I'm going to lay one ground rule. We can only say I told you so once. So if you want to get that. No, I mean, it's sad, but we've had broken immigration policies from really unprincipled leaders in the church, in the government. So tell our listeners what the immigration story is really about and how we really need to talk about ICE and immigration as Christians.
Well, I think that one of the first things that's important to understand is it's not unbiblical to have some control over the people that are coming into your country. That has been the biggest ploy that people like long time. Russell Moore, who was at the Southern Baptist ERLC and then at Christianity Today, has spread these ideas that you're not loving your neighbor if you don't have open borders and you don't have other things where people can just basically come into the country unrestricted. Famously, when we were talking about the Afghan refugees, he wrote, "These aren't terrorists." Well, turns out one was. And
Yeah.
there was no vetting. It
One-
was chaos. So this is
One-
what I think.
It was a
What
lot
are you
more than
talking
just
about,
one.
man? Yeah. Man, I agree with what you're saying. Sorry.
No,
Alan, we're just tired of it. It just feels like every time it's the same thing. And we look back and it's like the I told you so is real, but you just cannot say it any more clearly than this. Bad things happen and people see the bad things and we're reporting on it. And Alan, guys, with your voice, you were trying to point this out. I really think that the Christian ICE relationship is broken. We don't know how to react to that now because we were told these guys were all okay to deal with.
I think that is one of the great failures of the church, and they were infiltrated by NGO monies and other corrupt influence. Some people would take money, and some people, they just like the stature of being quoted by the New York Times or being invited to the right parties when they are visiting DC. So we've had people who are not faithful necessarily to Scripture, but have been telling us that any type of law and order is somehow racist or bad and evil. And whether it's the George Floyd stuff that you guys mentioned with the riots, instead of cracking down on riots, it was encouraged by some people. In fact, we had megachurch pastors and people going during COVID out to marches for Black Lives Matter while closing their churches. So you can just sit down and look at a list of these things, of the failures of the church leadership, and it's widespread.
And sadly, you're not just talking about David Platt. Even though you're explicitly talking about David Platt, you're not just talking about David Platt. Well, listeners, we'll get back to this in just a second, but first I want to tell you about our sponsor, Navita IT Managed Solutions. Navita IT Managed Services is much more than a help desk. They're more than a network administrator because Navita has decades of business consulting and analytics experience. While a lot of IT companies just react to whatever's broken when you call them, Navita proactively looks ahead to understand how money, relationships, and people flow through your business. Navita IT Managed Services works to keep your business growing as a healthy part of God's kingdom. They help churches at Navita. Navita helps businesses steward their resources to become the best possible business leader. So visit NavitaITManagedServices.com today to learn more about Navita IT Managed Solutions. And we're excited to have a veteran-owned Christian business like Navita. They just punch all the buttons on board with us this year. We know that you'll love them at your business. So use Navita for all your IT solutions. We're back with Alan Atchison talking about immigration. Alan, please try to be Moses for a minute, but lead us forward.
Well, leading us out of this it's very complicated. We have created, because it's obvious, Democrats have a financial incentive and an electoral incentive to flood the nation with legals and illegals and attempt to cobble together a coalition. You can see that happening, for example, in the Somali community that they've managed to import, with Republican help, of course, to places like Minnesota and other these big cities. What we want, because there's a combination of things we're getting who don't really appreciate Western values. It's one thing to allow in who are committed to democracy and liberty and all of this stuff, but when you import people whose worldview doesn't include things like that, doesn't include respect for their fellow Americans, you get a dangerous situation. Then on top of that, the multiculturalism that infects our school systems, we get these people here and then we tell them how bad America is. We constantly tell them how there are problems here and America deserves your hatred. So we're doing everything we can to keep assimilating people, which is inherently dangerous. And it creates this nonsense that you see. And again, look at places like Minnesota, where you've got people who cater to specific ethnic groups because that's how you win elections.
Yes, and we're just finding out about the scale of this fraud. It's going to get bigger. It's infected the business world, the nepotistic hiring practices among H-1B visa holders. Look at the Capital One scandal, among the HR folks, where they hire other Indians to exclude folks that were born and raised in America just because, they're going to get a cut of that paycheck because they're going to go back to the values system of the country they came from, where it's common to give the person who hired you a portion of your check. So it is a different value system. Now, Alan, back in 2023, you pointed out that then current SBC president Clint, C-L-I-N-T, Pressley, P-R-E-S-S-L-E-Y, was not the right person to address immigration issues in America. Now, remind our listeners why that story was so true and why is it relevant today?
Well, I think he was kind of a great example of the SBC insider who went along with everything when they thought they had to listen to Russell Moore. So there was a video of him talking about how this guy that he had employed as a pastor in the church, I think it was like a Spanish speaking pastor or something like that, who was a dreamer, and that, he had no problem with that. He thought we should give them lots of opportunities to solve the problem of dreamers. But, if you remember, dreamers were this thing that Obama started for people who were brought here illegally and had been here for a very long time, raised here and knew more about our country than other countries. So you can have some compassion for people like that. But Pressley had adopted that whole strain of thought coming from the ERLC at the time and coming from Soros-funded NGOs agitating for Christians to promote Christian dreamers and to urge the change of immigration policy, refugee policy based on that to be more open and accepting. And that's been a long-standing trend. I think it was before 2012 or somewhere around there where we first got news that Soros-funded NGOs were using things like the evangelical immigration table to change how Christians think about these things.
You're right. You mentioned the Soros immigration table. Trump has obviously said publicly that, they're looking at these guys. I think RICO charges have been mentioned. And as you said that, it just blew up in my mind right as you said that. I wonder if they bring RICO charges in on that, is there any chance that folks at the immigration forums, folks at World Relief, these guys who have really engaged in little more than human trafficking at the expense of Americans and to the detriment of our country, any chance those guys are going to get brought in on RICO charges?
There's always the chance.
Yeah.
Am I going to be thinking that that's going to happen? I doubt it, because it takes a long time to get these things. There's a reluctance on the part of the professionals in the DOJ to do certain things. I'm skeptical that we'll see anything really come of that. I hope, and I'll continue to pray that people who have been trying to corrupt the church do get held accountable. I do think that there are chances, or there's a good warning here, I should say, for Christians. Back in the George W. Bush administration, there was this big push to use funding to faith-based charities.
Yes.
And before that, the government hadn't been doing that for a lot of reasons. So it was like religious liberty. So we all kind of thought, well, that'll be a good thing. But flip forward a few years, and then we see these large amounts of money, hundreds of millions of dollars flowing into these charities to help with refugee resettlement and other types of things. And I think that has been one of the biggest things that has corrupted the church and a lot of organizations.
Yeah. You're talking about the points of light from Bush and that, but those failed. I mean, we saw how those were mopped up and became, it was grifting at some point. Tell us what the best model for actual immigration policies are going to be and what's cheaper. It seems like we're out there. We're not a good effect for these people.
Cheaper and safer.
I think important. I changed a lot of my views on immigration policy when I was in grad school and I read this book, The Devil's Highway. It tells a story of, I think, a dozen people from South America and Central America who paid coyotes to smuggle them across the border. Unfortunately for this group of people, the organized crime don't care about these people's lives. They just want the money. So they took them through the desert. They had an inexperienced guide, got lost, separated. Some of them died. Some of them suffered serious injuries and were in the hospital for a very long time. Not controlling the border for those people who are tempted because they have a very bad where they're at, that's not very merciful. It's not very good. Laws exist to, in some way, deter people from doing things. And by not having a border law, not having controls on this, we encourage people who are desperate to take desperate measures. I don't think that's a very loving way to be, both from a Christian perspective, but just from a secular government perspective. I mean, you have to feel bad for people who want a better life. Now, that's the reason I think that you can have immigration. You just need people who want to come, who want to assimilate because they appreciate things. And that's what's great about America. For hundreds of years, people have wanted to come here because there is the ability to go to a Baptist church instead of a state church, or there's the economic opportunities. There are a lot of reasons that people want to come here, but we've done a very bad job prioritizing those people, the ones who want to do it right. And instead, we allow people to jump the line. And in many cases, these are people who, like some of the Somali community, really hate America. And that's not what we need. We can't have a healthy America when a large segment of the people that we're bringing in hate us and want our destruction.
Listeners, move from the Somalians that hate America to some Christians who love their own country. And I want to talk to you about a group we talk about every week, Equipping the Persecuted. Now, we've done shows going back 5 years regarding the genocide and murder of Christians in Nigeria. And through that time, there's a Christians group on the ground doing the Lord's work to save our fellow Christians, fellow believers. And that's Equipping the Persecuted.org. And thank you for your support if you're supporting them. That helps real Christians that are attacked by brutal Muslim jihadists. These folks need food, clothing, shelter, medical care. These need help building a new life. And your monthly donation creates sustainable help for people who are in real need. Equippingthepersecuted.org. You can support their work today by visiting their website. You can sponsor an orphan for just $35 a month, or you can order African coffee and have it shipped straight to your home. Every bag of Equipping the Persecuted coffee that you purchase does more than just fill your cup. It strengthens the body of Christ, because 100% of those proceeds in that coffee sale go directly to support the persecuted Christian in Nigeria. They have several great flavors you can try on their website. You can order them today. Again, that's equippingthepersecuted.org. And I'll be honest with you, we get a ton of people following us on Facebook from Nigeria now. They are thankful, those Christians in Nigeria. So thank you very much. Alan, I want to get back to you now. Back in 2025, I just sent you this through X, a tweet that I had put out. And I had suggested back then that groups that had been involved in the trafficking of folks here for the sake of government, that they could support repatriation programs, and they could implement voluntary repatriation by partnering with international NGOs and home country governments, offer through the church financial incentives, through private flights and buses, logistical support, passports, visas to encourage return migration. They could help get these folks going back on the ground. Again, that this would be volunteer funding with no money from any level of American government, and contrast that against an ICE enforced deportation. Do you have any better ideas? We wanted to ask, what does passionate help from the church look like as people remigrate? Because yes, we want our country back. We are dual citizens. How should the church handle this?
Well, and because we've allowed this problem to fester for so very long, the answers become a lot more difficult. There are some people who are going to want to remigrate to self-deport, because if they do that, they have the opportunity to reapply and cut through legal means. The church should focus on things like that. If people really do want to come here, helping people do it legally, returning to where they're from, filling out the paperwork, the church could help with a lot of that, or at least nonprofits that are related to the church could help. That would be one thing. I think the most important part of anything like that, though, unfortunately, we're not going to have any control over as individuals. It has to come from the government, which is you have to begin controlling the border. It has to be a concerted policy that, lasts more than 4 years. It has to be a long-term thing, because as soon as power changes hands, we're going to be right back in the fix again, because Democrats are telling you that. So it's going to be complicated. And I think that's ultimately when we talk about compassion. Where is the compassion for the American worker? We have encouraged a couple of generations of Americans not to take certain jobs. I think the CEO of Ford the other day was saying that he has six-figure jobs, $120,000 mechanic jobs, thousands of them that they can't fill. Why? Because we send everybody to get a liberal arts degree at college so they can earn $35,000 a year instead of learning a trade. We've betrayed Americans in some ways, because we think, well, we can just import the labor that we need. And to a point, you can sort of do, but again, we still have thousands of jobs of people we can't hire. They have to be trained. I think what has gotten out of balance is that so many in the evangelical leadership are more focused on immigrants and refugees than citizens. And that's a very bad place to be, because what's the government's role? Who are they
Yeah.
supposed to ultimately protect? Life, liberty, and property. Those are scriptural commands for government. If they're not looking out for the citizen who has the legal right to be here, they're not really caring for their neighbor, are they?
No. Yeah. The tender mercies of the wicked are cruel. And that's playing out here. And we have more wickedness in the church than we care to admit. And I think, if you were to say to some of these people, count your neighbors, they'd go 1, 2, skip a few, 99 South America, 1, 2, skip a few, 99 Somalia. I mean, this foolish proclivity that we have to step over the Good Samaritan that is literally on the road. That's the point of that story. The Good Samaritan in the Bible is that your neighbor is whoever you're in natural proximity to. I don't know if these guys are looking for some weird dopamine rush by skipping everybody that's adjacent to bring some unknown over because it's more exciting. It's kind of like write your own adventure, except you don't know what you're getting into. You're a Southern Baptist. What's the Southern Baptist Convention and churches in the Southern Baptist Convention? What do they need to do going forward as we talk about what modern immigration policy looks like, in your opinion? What's your opinion where we need to go?
Well, I think it's complicated. I have not so much problem accepting people who want to be here, who love the country, who accept the Western Christian values that are the fundamental nature of everything that we do. Also, I think the U.S. has benefited from allowing people to come into the country. I don't think we would have made it to the moon if we hadn't have taken Wernher von Braun and his Nazi scientist. And that was
I will allow war captives.
Those types of examples are that you can get people who can come in and make contributions. And I do think in the current situation in the world, the U.S. is still popular because despite our flaws, we're freer. I mean, look at what's happened in Europe. They want to shut down X. So there's all of these issues that makes America great or appealing to people. But I do think that there has to be some, that melting pot analogy. Well, if people aren't melting and coming together, you're not going to be able to long-term succeed. And it could be capping things. Certainly we need to change the way that we do refugees. I mean, we take too many refugees in these crisis situations. And then in many instances, we see people who don't really want to be here. And I think there was a study that a lot of these people who are refugees end up going back on vacation to the country they came from. That hurt the refugees.
It was 70 or 80% of Muslim refugees ended up doing that, and that came out recently. Wow. I remember that. But if we don't take their best people, because we're told these are the best people, how are we going to prevent their countries from rebuilding themselves?
Well, that's a good point. There is a brain drain.
Yes. You're taking everything that would be their goodness. That joke about it a little bit, but that is so backwards. If these people are going to contribute here, why are they not contributing to the nation they love? Why are we not encouraging that? We should be a blessing to that land and educating those people to be the best they can right there.
Yeah.
Well, that would be certainly cheaper than bringing certain people here, particularly low-skilled people, but even some high-skilled people. There are going to be costs associated with either. And in many instances, when you do take the best, and America has tended to do that for a long time, and it's worked out pretty good. I mean, we've got a lot of high technology that has benefited from that. But the flip side of that is exactly right. If you take all the smart people from these developing countries, how are they going to cope? And you hit something there. They should support the country they love. And in many instances, a lot of people, regardless, don't really love America. And really begs the question, why are they here? Well, they're here to ultimately, because of the economic opportunity, with taking that and whatever they want with it and undermining what has made America great, which is our liberties. And that is, again, a God-given thing that we are stewards of. And we're not doing a very good job of protecting that.
Yeah. Well, Alan, it's been a great show. I love your account on X. I wish you wrote more. You are one of the best news aggregator accounts I follow, because that's essentially what you're doing now. Where can our listeners read more about your current work and what you think is important?
They can find me on X, Capstone Report. They can find capstonereport.com. Periodically, I do write some things. I have not been writing as much lately because I've had other projects. Sort of taking a break because you can only say so many times, hey, SBC, you guys are acting stupid here. Please reconsider. So I kind of got to thinking, God's given me everything I've had to say about that. So let some other people have things to say. But I'll post things at Capstone Report and on Twitter.
Well, Thank you, Alan. Genuinely, thank you for coming on to talk with us about immigration and the cultural issues and political issues around it. But most importantly, the church is and how Christians should handle it. Listeners, please visit capstonereport.com. You can stay informed on these issues as they relate to the church in America. And again, he's Capstone Report on X. Remember that on tnchristian.com, we have links to past shows, articles about current events affecting Tennessee and the entire nation. And if you want to support our work, again, thank you. That's patreon.com/tnchristian. We've been blessed this year. We picked up more supporters. It's going to enable us to do more things. And until next week, remember our favorite promise from the book of Exodus: the Lord shall reign forever and ever.